to the Daily Exchange. I'm here, Fred Chibesta, with my mate Toby Abbey, and we are coming at you live. Today we're talking straight chat, real straight chat. We're talking ETFs, we're talking Bitcoin, we're talking the market. We're going to get a little crazy on the show. We'll see you right back after this. All right, welcome back, guys. Turbs, how are you going today, man? How you feeling?
Fantastic. Lot to talk about.
It's all happening here. Guys, let's have a look at the market right now. What are we looking at? Bitcoin trading, 8230, Ethereum at $467, Ripple at 45 cents. The market's pretty, a little bit red, would you say, Turbs? Not too bad.
It's mainly going sideways, which I always think is a healthy way to go.
Healthy way to go. Nothing really standing out. Tron up 5% for...
Yeah, if anything likes to have a pump, Tron does. So it's hardly out of character.
Tron pumping! All right, guys, we're talking about... let's go through the top coins right now. Let's have a look at what's going on. Bitcoin, I guess, over the weekend, over Friday, the ETF did close on the 27th of July with the CBOE. This whole ETF thing, it's a big deal.
It is.
The US SEC's coming out, they're denying the Winklevoss. Well, they didn't deny the Winklevoss. Let's get this clear. What exactly happened there?
Well, my belief is they reiterated the reasons why they denied it, which some people in the market, I think, were looking for a headline. They reacted negatively to it, but as you can see, the market's moved on, and yeah, we're focusing on some of the other real applications from CBOE, plus I imagine there's a lot of other applications in the pipeline.
So we dropped down at 7,900, back up around this 8,204. We're juggling around like 8,250 and things like that. Very interesting movements right now.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about ETFs in a bit, guys, so let's just wait for that. Toby, you've got some really interesting stuff around this as well.
For sure.
Do send your questions in, guys, as we go along, obviously. Follow us on Twitter, Twitch, wherever you want. Periscope are coming at you. Joel, tell us, where's your favorite place to broadcast right now? Where's your favorite channel? Tell us.
My favorite channel is this channel. It is, and this show, actually, this is genuinely my favorite show.
You're a good man, Joel. You're a good man. EOS, up to $8.20. It's been moving around. 460 mil traded in the last 24 hours. Up to 1.1 billion traded in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. I think EOS is one of those ones. It's a lot of people have the love-hate relationship with it. You've got people like Mike Novogratz sees it as the #1 bet. You've got backing from some of the biggest, most established players. I know a lot of people, including yourself and myself, trying to go with it. Sometimes it does get a little bit scary. It can really shake the space up, but they need to get through some of these sort of teething problems and reputation issues.
Yeah, definitely one of those things. It's obviously... they're announcing this update to their developer platform. Obviously, that'll be a big deal. And I do think that getting some more support for their hardware wallets out there. I don't think any of the hardware wallets support it because they were supporting the ERC20.
That's right. So I was setting up a wallet there a couple of weeks back. It's actually a very complicated process. I had to go to one of the fellas from the local block producer who helped me set that up because I was looking to get in and buy some RAM, and by the time I was trying to do that, I was a little bit late to the party, so I left that RAM trade alone. But it wasn't an easy process for me to go and open a wallet because you basically almost had to be vouched by someone who had a wallet already. So they need to get those barriers to adoption out of the way.
Definitely, yeah. I guess the big thing there is if you didn't register your ERC20 tokens, you don't get a wallet, and obviously there are some block producers that are producing some software out there where they can you can pay to get a wallet. It costs a bit, but I think it's like $15 or something like that to get your own wallet.
Yeah, it wasn't sort of inconsequential. I was lucky enough to have someone do it for me, which was very kind of them. It was Ty from Genereos. Yeah. So
cool guys.
Yeah, great guys.
Vote for Genereos.
Doing good things for the Aussie EOS community.
Look, guys, when it comes down to it, this RAM thing's been going up and down, up and down, up and down. What's your view on this RAM thing, Toby? What do you think about this stuff?
So it's definitely going to be a commodity that is going to see some speculation, because I think people are front-running the fact that people are going to need to have RAM to have your applications and to store data on EOS. Basically, they won't have the sort of IPFS of other networks. You're going to have to store it in RAM, which is a more expensive way to do it. I think the block producers, sort of knowing this, tried to front run themselves, and that's why you've seen, one, an increase in the RAM price, and also the volatility around it is, yeah.
One of those things, really. I guess without RAM, it's going to be damn hard to run those apps.
Yeah, but I'm not an expert on this topic, but I believe they will add more RAM to the network.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. You don't want to be speculating crazy hard on this, because it's something they can probably increase the supply.
100%.
Yeah.
Interesting, with the recent support for iOS Secure Enclave, this is obviously enabling Apple devices with Touch ID and Face ID. Means that those IDs will be able to validate transactions, securely store wallets using the EOS platform. That's a big deal.
That's massive.
Massive deal. Doing some good integrations. They are working on this. They're making it happen. I like it.
That's the thing. We need that sort of, yeah, Steve Jobs iPhone, easy, like you can show your grandmother how to use blockchain, and we don't have it yet. And to hear things like that, it just, yeah, that's the bullish sort of news we need for the space to make it accessible for people that aren't as tech savvy.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was moving some Evrapedia the other day.
Because
that
bought some, I got it in the airdrop.
I got it in the airdrop.
Yeah.
And really interesting thing was it moved so quick.
The price, or the transfer.
The
of
transfer.
asset. Yeah.
Just super fast.
Well, that's the way it should be. There's no reason. It's like, yeah, broadband versus dial-up. We were talking earlier, like you used to have to wait for your MP3 to download.
Yeah.
Now it's just instant streaming. That's the way blockchain is going to be.
100%.
Yeah.
Talking about Ripple, obviously it's been changing hands a bit around the 45 cents mark. I don't know. Sorry, Joel. You're going to kill me, aren't you? Can't say Ripple, got to say XRP. Ripple has nothing to do with XRP, by the way.
Yeah. Can we not talk about Ripple?
Nothing to do with it. It's all XRP these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Ripple has no association whatsoever with the token XRP. Not sure how that's even possible, but apparently it is. FX Street reports whether or not the company behind it has come out on the front foot regarding whether XRP is a security. And its report is, everyone is free to say what they want or pursue their own agenda in the media, but ultimately the facts around XRP will win out over uninformed speculation, a spokesperson from Ripple explained in the interview with express.com.au. Any views, man, on
well, the thing I've never been able to sort of plug the gap to go too deep on Ripple is you can basically use the Ripple payments network without using the Ripple token. So why the token has a value has always been a bit of a mystery to me.
I agree. I am confused. I'm deeply confused by this. But anyway, Litecoin, recent report from BC Focus reports on comments made by Litecoin founder Charlie Lee. Lee has sold his LTC stash and said Bitcoin is like gold and XRP is like diamond. Wow, that's very bullish by Lee on the, he's big into it. He says, Lee pointed BTC's ease of transfer and widening acceptance with XRP. He said Ripple is somewhat like a diamond because its supply is also artificially controlled.
I actually like that analogy because we were, again, discussing something. I think I used the diamond analogy this morning. If I say I've got a diamond to you and it's worth $5,000, like, it's a lot of interpretation into how much a diamond's worth, and you've got to be trained to know its value. I don't think you do, so that's why we don't use them as a medium of transaction.
100%.
So, yeah, let's put Ripple in that camp.
That's a new one for me. Ripple is like diamonds. Absolutely fascinating. Anyway, sitting on $84 right now. One of those things, really, isn't it? It's following along with Bitcoin. Item number 3. Yeah. Let's move on.
Okay.
What are people saying? There's some crazy shit going on right now. What do you think of some of these? Toby, I'm going to tell you the quote.
Yeah.
And then you tell me what you think about it, okay? The first one is, MasterCard CEO thinks crypto is junk even though MasterCard just filed a patent that links fiat to crypto transactions. What do you think?
Bull. I can't swear because We might have some younger members in the audience.
Apologies on my my language this morning. Just a little fired up.
Yeah.
We're having straight chat out here, Tobes.
I'm sure the guys with the steam engine didn't like the gasoline motors coming either, but yeah, leave the credit card companies to say what they want.
So good, the steam engine. Okay, number 2. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Miller thinks most other cryptocurrencies are worthless, but is definitely bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, if you look at CoinMarketCap right now, it looks like he's right in a lot of ways. You're seeing that, what I like to call the Bitcoin vortex, is just sucking all the other value out of the projects because it's got that mass adoption and the network effect, and there's a lot of promises made by we're going to kill Bitcoin, we're going to do all this other stuff that people aren't delivering. So I think we're going to see huge value created in the smart contract space, and we don't know who's going to win that race. But if you look at the sort of league table in CMC, yeah, for sure, Bitcoin is coming out ahead, in my opinion, and it's been reflected in the price action.
100%. All right, number 3. Crypto hedge fund manager Spencer Bogart calls Bitcoin a tinderbox waiting to go higher. You got a quote for us, Joel, on this one? You got them all up, or they're already up, or he's already cranking them. What do you think about that one? Spencer Bogart, crypto hedge fund manager.
Yeah, so I think he's right. And Bitcoin to me is always going to be a tinderbox. And one of the attractions that made me love Bitcoin is there isn't another asset class in the world that has this. It doesn't have a supply response. Bitcoin price can go to 20,000 in a month, and we can't print more Bitcoin. That's why it's always going to have this sort of boom-bust cycle. And we had the boom last year, we've had the bust. Everybody's still building out their businesses and trying to make it real. So the next wave of adoption, I always use the analogy like it spreads a little bit exponentially. Like the knowledge of sort of distributed ledgers and networks spreads like a virus, and there's a lot more people in the know now. So the next wave of adoption, it's just going to be bigger and bigger.
I hear you. All right. I loved your analysis there. Kind of got some good quotes, good little sound bites.
Yeah.
Just you're on fire this morning.
Write that down.
Yeah. Trading trends. Let's get back to ETFs. Let's talk about this. Talking about ETFs. Everyone's talking about ETFs.
Yeah, it is a topic of conversation.
It's really moving prices right now. Let's talk about this. Winklevoss, obviously, SEC reiterated that. The CBOE Bitcoin ETF approval, which was a big deal.
Huge.
And then the SEC is going to come back in August on that one. So there's another one there.
Yep.
And there are 2 interesting tweets. Let's bring them up, Joel. Check these ones out. First one's from Hester Pierce. She says, apparently Bitcoin is not ripe enough, respectable enough, or regulated enough to be worthy of our markets. I dissent, she says. Now, that's pretty hardcore. Let's read her actual quote. She says, in the SEC, I believe that the proposed rule change satisfies the statutory standard that we should permit BZX to list and trade its Bitcoin-based exchange-traded product. Now, this is on the SEC website.
Yeah, and she's respectfully dissented. And I think you can come at this from a lot of angles, and we were discussing that a lot in aspects of the community. So we're allowing anybody to sign up an account with Coinbase and speculate on Bitcoin and transfer to BitMEX and Gear 100X. But if you want protection in a regulated market, the SEC is saying you can't have it.
It's wild. That's like, basically you can go and drink moonshine, but you can't buy a beer from a bar.
Exactly.
Basically, we're going to go further. But this is a big deal, right? This is major. Like for someone to dissent and come out so strongly, and she's really written about this as well, right? She's really gone into it, into a lot of the detail. She's gone into, you know.
It's not a position someone like that would take lightly. To publicly dissent from a government body is a big deal.
Massive, massive. And like you said, you know, right now you can go and buy Bitcoin literally with, you know, hard-earned currency and hard-earned cash, and you can hold it in your own wallet, and yet you cannot reliably purchase it from the government. That feels kind of weird. It feels like, it just feels awkward.
Yeah, well, the government in some sense is regulating it. You've got CBOE and CME futures, brings it under the regulation of hardcore US government agencies like the CFTC, the FBI, the Department of Justice. They can all work together now. It's a regulated futures product. But I think the SEC is sort of just trying to bury its head in the sand and hope this whole thing goes away. But it's real, it's here to stay, and yeah, one way or another, they're going to have to work with it. So
there's been some calling back by a few people in terms of, I think the guys from the is it Van Eck have responded about, to the SEC's concerns. They've got valuation concerns, liquidity concerns, custody concerns. Even with this one, right, with the custody, Van Eck's not even going to hold Bitcoin.
No, you can get around it by trading the derivatives now, regulated derivatives.
They've got arbitrage concerns, potential manipulation and other risks.
To speak to the sort of manipulation and other risks, there was a move by the CME, I think before, or maybe it was in response to the last settlement, that basically if the price gets too wide, they will set a sensible price, which I think is potentially to prevent people using the leverage they have in the derivatives market and manipulate the underlying for a favourable settlement, which I think the community, it's almost happened every futures expiry. We see a big dump, people are short. I think stops are always heavier on the long side, so people go for the push down, which I was sort of using. If you take the assumptions, you've got $100 million short derivative exposure, you sell 5 million worth of Bitcoin on the exchanges that match the price, or where they get the price from, that's going to move that 5% in your favour. Assume you lose 5% on the 5 million you sold, that'll cost you, $250,000, but the 5% you gain on the 100 mil short and derivatives picks you up 4.75 net. And I'm not saying people are doing that, but there certainly has been those moves, which I think, someone's going to be looking at.
Got to be. Yeah. Like it's right up there. It's pretty close right now. But regardless of any of that, right, this happens in regular markets as well, right? I'm assuming there's like a whole lot of series of things, but there's no one...
Yeah, there's always expiries, and you hear like you got triple witching and quadruple witching, which is when all the options expires and everyone's trying to... Well, they shouldn't be trying to, but it's sort of widely known that it happens, that, when things settle, there's a lot more interest in a product.
It's absolutely fascinating. Do you think someone else is going to pop the SEC, being the first ETF? Do you think it's possible that someone else, some other government might come out and...
Yeah, I'd love it to be ASIC. Yeah. It'd be nice to see Australia blazing the trail in something like this. Yeah. I'm not aware of anyone that's making good headway for a listed product or an ETF down here. But you've got a Bitcoin trust that trades in Sweden, in Stockholm. There probably are a few others that I don't know about, but nobody's got a great product.
And in your view, Toby, why is it so important that we get this ETF live? What's the reason that will help this market?
Well, I think it's the ease of use for the average investor. So if you're a US stock trader or just somebody who's investing, you've probably got access through the big brokers like Interactive Brokers and Charles Schwab and all of that. They probably don't want to do the onboarding to a crypto exchange and pass all the KYC again and take the selfies. Once it's like in Australia, if you can just log on to CommSec, get some exposure to crypto, everybody's going to be pushing that 1 or 2% of your portfolio for diversification. You can actually say not doing it is risky. Like whatever's going to improve the efficient frontier of a portfolio is going to be smart to do. So an emerging asset class like this, I think you need to give your everyday investor the ability just to log in and buy it. That's why it's a big deal.
100%. So just ease of just buying. Get your CommSec punters, get your Charles Schwab, get your... get all those... let's get them all in. Come on in. All right, let's move on. I'm talking about... let's talk about this. There's an actual Ponzi scheme going on right now and everyone knows about it. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Real life Ponzi scheme.
reverse Ponzi potentially.
Real Ponzi scheme.
And a pyramid scheme.
Pyramid as well. Real pyramids.
It's all encompassing. So we know
FOMO3D.
we know a lot of people playing it. I might have bought some keys myself.
Have a dabble.
There's
Of the old Ponzi.
only one way to learn about these things and become a bit of a subject matter expert is to dip your toe in the water.
Let's talk about just the effect this is having upon Ethereum right now. Let's just dial on over here, Joel, if we can. The top 2 apps on Ethereum, PoWH3D and FOMO3D, both genuine Ponzi schemes.
Yeah. It's not a great thing for the space, but it is a
Ponzi scheme.
It's a great sort of example of game theory in action. You've got people that sort of know it's a scam, especially that is brought to your attention by the website being exitscam.me. And people are trying their luck, seeing if they can get in the right part of the pyramid to potentially make some money.
It's true.
A couple of guys we know were, playing the game quite successfully, but you could see when they launched the short game that the first couple of games really went off, and now the interest has died down. I think the pot's gone from 5 million to the winner to 50 grand.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of talk about this is going to break Ethereum and be the end, but I think it's a fad.
I agree. I think when these things start, I've seen it on the internet. I remember a series of different schemes that were similar. And the first ones, like, remember the 1 million pixel homepage?
Yeah, I know the story.
It reminds me of
Yeah.
that. It's still live, I'm pretty sure. Still kicking out there. But I actually worry about that because imagine if you owned that, you'd have to keep hosting it for years and years and years and years to come.
Yeah.
That'd be a bit of a liability, right?
Well, that's the thing, this long game, it's, the price of the keys isn't scaling up exponentially, so people are wondering if it will ever end.
But someone did win, like a quarter of $1,000,000 of Ethereum on that first round. And someone else, like the people are winning the pots.
Yeah, but in the short game, I don't think one of the longer games.
No, the
has
long
gone
game,
off.
no. Which is fascinating in and of itself. But what I want to talk about with this, I think is interesting, is what do you think this is, and what do you think this says about, Ethereum and its scalability and things like that? What's your feeling on that?
The network is basically handling the traffic.
It is.
But, yeah. So it's a good sort of example of it can handle a popular decentralized application, but yeah, I think a real-world decentralized application, like the example I like, is to run, say, a decentralized Uber. The amount of traffic you're going to have going through the smart contracts, is just going to break it instantly.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Really interesting stuff, but and I think, these are the kind of things where you're testing the limits and you're testing people's interest. I love it when things like this come and go because it shows that stuff's still happening. It shows growth.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. If someone had said, do you want to back this idea as an investment, you'd say, no way, no one's ever going to go for that. But I think people love the experimentation that you can do to be basically running an open source scam of sorts where everyone knows the rules.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. I think people, they want to see where these things go.
40% of the Ethereum's network traffic, it must have been right up there over the weekend as well.
Well, it's moved the gas price a lot, so
yeah,
it is sort of to the detriment of everybody else using the network.
True. And with one of these ones, the 24-hour one's still going, right? This is still clocking along.
Yeah.
31,000 Ether, $46.6 million of Ethereum. Incredible. So I think relatively it's an interesting experiment. I think it's definitely a Ponzi scheme, and I think the air's been sort of taken out of it now. But it's those times. These are those beautiful times when you see those things come and go.
Yeah.
You don't see that as much on the internet anymore.
No, and I think it's people just enjoying the fact that they can operate without a rule book. Like whoever's coded this up, is basically doing something wild that never could have been thought to be floated in an open way, but they're just saying, let's see what can be done and see where it goes, which, Yeah, it's crazy, and I don't think these guys are necessarily stewards of the space doing overt scams like this. But, yeah, the game theory implications in this just blow your mind. The fact that it gets people to participate and people are playing a scam game trying to make money, even though they know most people are going to lose.
I reckon some miners must have crushed it with some of those massive gas prices people are putting in as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Item number 5, we're talking about Tezos. And obviously it's beautiful on-chain governance and things like that. What's your sort of view about Tezos right now, Toby? Where do you think it's sort of at?
Well, it's a bit of a sleeping giant in my opinion. Like, it's sitting there at over $1 billion market cap. It's only trading on 2 or 3 exchanges. It's very illiquid. There's a lot of people that hold it from back in the ICO. I don't think too much of it is changing hands to new investors just yet because it basically hasn't hit a good exchange. But that's got to be coming because of the market cap of it. The daily volume is way out of whack compared to everything else of that value. So there's a pot to go after. So for pure self-interest, I wouldn't be surprised to see it get listed in better trading environments. So that's an interesting aspect. The network itself is up and running. It's fast, it's usable. It's sort of doing what they said it was going to do. It's still in a beta net, so it actually hasn't gone to the final iteration of it. Right. This is somewhat a test phase. But yeah, I definitely think it's one to watch. And I guess the main selling point of that is that on-chain governance because the community can come together and change directions and scale the technology, which obviously is the ongoing contention in Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin had that on-chain governance, they could have said, all right, we're going to do the 2 meg block size and we're going to do SegWit, and the sort of weight of money would vote for the direction and you wouldn't see the community forking and splitting off like it has. So there's definitely implications. I think it's somewhat experimental, but yeah, it's working its way up the league table. So
it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. It's one of those ones that's sort of, yeah, you're right, sleeping giant. Cardano had that stuff sort of built in, but we'll see how that goes. Let's move on, because I think this leads into a very strong straight chat topic. And I was a little worried to bring this up. I think we're really gonna have to, be careful with this one. So we'll see how we go. But the topic is, and I was talking with Toby before, and I've been through. I remember when the internet. I used to build, websites on PHP, websites with Bitcoin. So not Bitcoin, with Basic, Visual Basic, and ASP, and all those kind of things. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we were building these content management systems. Literally, WordPress comes along, and just like people can just launch websites almost pretty much for free.
Yeah.
And they don't need content management systems. And we're selling these things, right? And it just strikes me, I guess, where we're at. If we're going to sort of title this, is I think there are a lot of good ideas out there, but just built on old technology. Which is a spicy thing to say.
Yeah, it is. Bitcoin's 7 transactions a second on the mainnet.
7 transactions a second. It was, it's WAN chain, I guess, is a fork of Ethereum. You've got Tron has been just, they got source code of literally the same error messages as Ethereum sort of coming up.
Yeah, I don't know what Tron does other than pump and dump.
Well,
it seems good at that. So.
It seems to be up 6% right now, 6.3%. Tron is literally the only green rocket ship that's literally taken off right now.
Yeah.
Not exactly sure what's going on there, but let's just say, what a rocket ship, what a ride. One day they're going to turn around and go, wow, that was cool. Yeah. I used to work at Tron. It reminds me of this company. I remember there was an internet radio station, and they bought up everything. From buses to like domain names to like online retail stores.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be the next big thing, and the whole thing just went kaboom.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. That's what Tron reminds me of.
Yeah, I actually don't know much about it, but
Not that I'm saying that we shouldn't invest in Tron, or there's no financial advice given on this show, by the way. Completely, we don't talk about financial advice. If you want to buy Tron, go buy Tron. But it does confuse me.
yeah, exactly. It's been heavily criticised, and maybe there's some good things under the bonnet, but I haven't bothered to look, to be honest.
Potentially.
So,
But old technology, Toby, like the thing is, you look at some of these things, these are great ideas, but they're just built on stuff that, you know, you launch, like with Ethereum, you launch a Ponzi scheme, you take up 40% of the traffic.
yeah, that's the thing. I think maybe Ethereum can come through and scale and become this network that'll run all these decentralized applications. However, it's certainly taking its time to do so, which leaves itself open to competition. And there's serious competition. You've got EOS, billions of dollars funding from Block 1. You got Hashgraph, they're talking huge TPS, very corporate, somewhat the antithesis of blockchain, but they're going to launch with 80 dApps and really explode onto the scene. You've got a million, well, not a million, but there's a lot of other protocols that are promising big things in the TPS space. And yeah, it's sort of a trial by fire. Whoever can come out and prove themselves that they are capable of all these things, I think they'll see the devs and everybody working on things gravitate because they can build out their visions.
You know, I'm just seeing so many AI, cyber technology, cyber security, distributed hosting.
Yeah.
How you just see so many of these projects, right? Which are good projects. I'm not sure whether they're supposed to be on a blockchain. Maybe not. Maybe I don't understand. But it seems like they potentially are trying to pivot their business into that.
Yeah.
I think those businesses are good businesses. I don't know whether or not they are necessarily the businesses that are designed to go on the blockchain and really, you know, drive adoption and things like that. And if you go back, Joel, if you could bring up Vitalik's tweet recently, I think this might tie in nicely to that to some extent, where he talks about, in terms of the ETF, instead of everyone talking about ETF and Bitcoin, Ethereum, and those kind of things, you know, how are we going to get people to buy, you know, $5, $10, $100 worth of cryptocurrency? How's the everyday person going to get involved?
You know, I think we need to give them a better reason to. So Bitcoin, I think, does a very good job at its main use case, which to me is being a store of value. If it wants to crack the medium of exchange, it's going to need to work on that because, yeah, and that's what Lightning is. You've got things like RSK, again, quite controversial, but potentially people are going to come up with sidechain solutions that can make it a medium of exchange. As it stands now, it's not. It is a store of value due to its scarcity. However, it's like, well, potentially people should be buying $5 to $10 of that, but buying Ethereum now, you're speculating on a very, not unproven technology, but it's unproven is in the fact that can it change the world, because at its current sort of TPS it can't. So,
and where does that leave Bitcoin, you think? You know, like you got, you know, this digital gold maybe.
yeah.
You know, it's sort of chugging away in the background, slow. It feels like, you know, like an old wristwatch. You know, you got digital watches these days.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it was great in its time and it was ahead of everything, but that's how I'm feeling a little bit about some of these cryptocurrencies right now. And that's very controversial. It's straight chat, guys, today, straight chat. Apologies if I'm burning everyone up on this, and please send your comments in and we will respond to them. But it's just, that's the way I woke up the other day and I was saying to Toby that I just felt like there's some great ideas, but it's all going to be surpassed by other things that are just going to lightning through all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you've got like some really cool projects as well coming out. I don't know if you want to talk about some of those we saw in Korea as well. There were some really interesting ones.
Yeah, for sure.
And really trying to drive some adoption as well, really trying to get in there.
Yeah, well, because they've sort of got existing businesses that they can plug the users straight in. But yeah, back to your point, a lot of things in this space are dangerous. Is basically there's just pick a number. 20 people are all trying to do the same thing. So if you're betting on one company in that space to succeed, there's 19 chances out of 20 you're going to lose on that bet. Like smart contracts has got to be the most scalable, blockchains and things has got to be the most crowded space there is. Everyone's backing the protocol level. At the end, in 5 years from now, I see maybe we'll have 4 or 5 winners. Why do we need 20?
Yeah.
So.
It feels like as well, you know, going back, I've been reading a lot about this idea of commons good, you know, a commons good, you know, like water or a park or things like that. And it may be some of these things like, you know, almost like the internet. I guess this internet isn't, it's getting close to a commons good. I'm not sure if you could say it is or isn't. But a lot of things which are open source and are supposed to be, you know, shared by everyone, feels like that people are trying to own them in the blockchain space. Just feels kind of weird. To some
Which is
extent.
where Bitcoin's done a good job at that. It's basically here's money, although due to its deflationary nature, I think it's always going to be volatile. But basically, yeah, it is open source, and that's one of the sort of driving aspects that draws me to Bitcoin in this space in general. Is I think money is a common good and should be. It shouldn't be owned by anyone, especially not governments and central banks, because it's prone to manipulation.
Yeah, it's one of those things really, isn't it? It's interesting. I just feel, yeah, what do you guys think about that? Old technology, great ideas. It feels like, in another example is that pet van and web van in the start of the internet, right? Huge amounts of money, billions of dollars went into those companies. And they were just a bit early. Great ideas, old technology. You know, watching video streaming on your dial-up was almost impossible, right? But now you've got Amazon delivering to your door groceries.
Yeah.
You've got these pet stores, these online pet stores are just booming. They're like huge amounts of money because everyone got singed in the start and couldn't figure out how to make it work. Yeah. And now you've got the postal services are on board because they're like feeling irrelevant. Yeah. And that's the only source of their revenue really. Like who sends letters?
Exactly.
The tax man.
Yeah.
Worst letters ever. The pink ones. You've got them trying to adapt to this modern age of delivery. You've got that technology is fixed. You've got digital identities being much stronger. You've got credit cards more easily processed. You've got these companies adapting to logistics and things like that. Warehouses being built and all of those now being new businesses and very close to the cities. And so you've got these bigger products in these bigger markets starting to really start to distribute, right? In the same way, maybe if we were to take some of the ideas we were thinking about, you know, now or just before these recent protocols started coming out, at the start of Ethereum, and go back in time, what are some of the ideas that were trying to get up but didn't quite get up, and maybe retry those on some of these new blockchains? Maybe that might be an area where we get more adoption.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem. It's like you can have the world's best idea that it is blockchain applicable, but until you've got adoption and people have an Ether wallet, like just say you could do a decentralized Uber and it went live tomorrow, the population's not going to use it because they still don't know how to use crypto. 100%. So it's a bit like the internet. All those ideas were great, and video streaming was invented in 1998, but there wasn't enough people with fast enough broadband to watch it. Yep. A couple of people probably could, and it was all experimentation. So I think a lot of what we see now is going to lay the foundation and is going to change the world eventually. But yeah, it all comes down to, do we pull people in by building things that they want to use, which increases adoption? Or do we wait for adoption to grow naturally and a bit more organically, and then we can pull people into the apps?
100%. It's one of those moments in time, really. I think it's going to take a while for this to sort itself out. You know, it's kind of like a lot of these ideas will change. A lot of these ideas are going to keep coming out, but it's going to take some time. And I've been saying that actually recently to a lot of people that have been, really hastily. When's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? What we're noticing as you're building on blockchains is it just takes longer. There are less frameworks. There's it's just more time to build this stuff. Yeah. And it's not something you can just do overnight, right? It's something that just takes time to build these things. So, you know, it's going to take. We're going to get there, but we're going to get there. We're on this good journey.
Exactly. Like if someone rolled out a decentralized Netflix tomorrow that was better, cheaper, had all the same content, it's just not going to hit that adoption curve because everyone's going to need a wallet, and that's a step that they've got to walk through, which it's a barrier. So
let's move on. Old technology, great ideas, unfortunately. Here comes another idea. We're talking about treasure hunts, cryptocurrency treasure hunts, real ones, going down underneath the water, deep down, crypto. Purportedly, there seems to be an invite-only VIP, Joel, if you want to bring this up, a crypto dive, the world's only verified pirate treasure hunt. So apparently there's all this treasure all around the world, and the XPLR token, which is going to fund these treasure recovery dives. Apparently there's this ship from the 1717, and it's around Cape Cod, and they robbed 54 other ships. The Black Sammy Bellamy. Apparently 20 years have gone by and they haven't been able to recover this stuff. But there's treasure under the ocean. And they're calling for people to come and join them and hunt this treasure down and dig it up. You know, tell us, what's your view on this, Toby? This is a pretty long bow of crypto, right? What do you think about this?
yeah, I guess it's a very novel use for a token, but they're selling sunken treasure. There's obviously a lot of things you've got to look into, whether who's got the claims on that treasure. I know, who was it? There was a recent find off the coast of Colombia that was huge, billions of dollars, and it's now being fought over jurisdictionally. The Spanish are saying it was theirs because it was theirs back in the day. Colombia sort of says, as per the rules now it's ours. And then I believe there's another sunken treasure off the coast of Korea. And the issue there is to search for that treasure, you have to put up 10% of its value for some reason. And I forget what it was. Maybe they thought it was $1 billion and they were going to have to put up 100 mil collateral to go and search for it. They since revised that down quite heavily once they found out the collateral requirement. Now they're saying there's not quite so much there.
Isn't that much treasure to be treasured from this. I'll tell you what's interesting with this, Bob. It reminds me of back in the day when companies first started, actual share companies. And, you know, people would go out to the East Indies and they would put bets on different ships to whether or not they would come back with their treasure and things like that. It feels a bit like that. So in my mind, it feels almost like this is a straight security token to some extent, like if you were to call it, because it's basically a share of a financial asset. It does have a super high risk as to whether or not you can dig it out and whether or not there is treasure down there. But it feels like it's almost like
there's some interesting dynamics. If you raise money to go after a ship, and I happen to have the money and beat you to it, your investors have lost everything. Can you put a claim on that treasure? Like, there's a lot I don't know about the treasure industry, I guess.
I don't think either of us are ready to talk and provide any sort of opinion about treasure hunting. Now, moving on, guys, we had yesterday, you guys saw exclusively the Brock Pierce interview, which was streamed on Crypto Finder yesterday, and we just thought we'd talk through a few comments and give a few ideas around this. Brock did an incredible job, obviously explaining all sorts of different things. Want to talk, maybe we'll just jump into DNA, just going into, I've got the interview here. I think we're at 16 minutes. There's a number of different, I'll just play it for you guys.
You know, I don't necessarily have time to commit, but I do what I can with the time.
We've got, Brock's talking a bit about Hashgraph and good money
projects. Really
projects.
interesting projects with DNA. You've got Hashgraph, and now there's Good Money as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about those two projects and why you like them?
Well, Hashgraph is another attempt at building scalable blockchains, and I'm chain agnostic. I'm still chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation. I've obviously been a huge supporter of Ethereum and many other chains. My view is that anyone succeeds in making the world a better place, we all win. You know, as long as people are doing things with good intention, you know, I'm there to support it. And so that's what the Hashgraph.
I want to stop there. So Brock is the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation.
Yeah.
Let's just clarify. Do you know what that actually means?
They're the sort of overseeing and governing body, again, because it's decentralized. They don't hold any sway other than their reputation, but they're obviously highly thought of for being, I guess, governors of the early rollout and adoption of Bitcoin.
So when Bitcoin wants to make a change, does it get voted on by the community of developers, or does the foundation have to give it the stamp, or
well, there was sort of, that's where you had the Bitcoin core,
Yep.
which were building out a lot of things and pushing in the direction of SegWit, and they also own some of the patented layer 2 rails, which is where the backlash came from. And you've got the Bitcoin Cash, and I guess there was a bit of double crossing and misunderstanding because the Bitcoin Core guys rolled back on a deal they'd agreed to, and then the Bitcoin Cash guys were holding the fork as a sort of leverage against them. And then, the way things panned out, they pulled that lever and forked the network, because they're essentially saying you can do everything you guys want to do with side chains that are going to be patented and proprietary with larger block sizes. And then you get the whole holy war of Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash.
Spicy one, that one. But he, and just to note, Brock, you can see in this, is wearing a Shios shirt as well, which is one of the block producers with, I think it's an all-female team, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But he said he's chain agnostic, so...
I guess he's a believer in distributed ledger technology is what he's trying to get across there. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin, it doesn't have to be EOS. He wants to see the positives that are going to come for the world.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really care who wins that race.
Which is really cool. Let's move on. But
Craft guys are doing. The Good Money team are obviously good friends. Gunnar and Bear Kate, we're all sort of part of the same Burning Man camp called Red Lightning. It was something that I helped start back in 2008. My first year was in 2009. And so when had my first wedding at Burning Man, Bear and his wife Kati had their wedding on the same day in the same place the year before. And so our wedding also then became their anniversary party.
Oh, cool.
And so Bear is a friend that I helped bring into space. He's an investor in Block 1.
Yep.
And Gunnar is another friend, brought in. And then Nick Sullivan, who's their CTO, was the founder of ChangeTip. I led his seed financing. And so it's all just friends getting together, hanging out, and then figuring out how to go do good things in the world.
Yeah. What sort of, I guess you have such an intense lifestyle.
So he took, he is fueling to some extent, this Good Money project onto, to get involved with.
Yeah.
That's involved with his fund, I believe.
Yeah, presumably their fund would be, I think it's called Wavemaker Genesis.
Okay.
I would presume they would have bought the seed rounds in that and would be helping to get the ball rolling. And now DNA is taking that on a global roadshow to find investors. And
super hot project, this Good Money. Really interesting. Do you want to give it like a quick summary, Toby, of Good Money and what it's all about?
Yeah, so they're basically trying to build a good vibes digital bank. So they are going to have dollar deposits, crypto deposits. They're going to have their own stable coin, and then 50% of the profits of that bank are going to give back to charitable endeavors. And the
50% it burns the coins, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's a security token. So it's going to also look after investors. It is a bank at the end of the day, but they're trying to change banking and appeal to people that don't like the existing banking system for a number of reasons.
So with that, there are a lot of digital banks right now as well.
Yeah.
You've got Revolut, you've got Monzo. There's, it's in the UK. There's a series of ones popping up in Australia. You've got Simple in the US, who's been around for a while. how do you think this competes and compares with those kind of businesses? What do you think's, how do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, well, in a way, it's a direct competitor. But yeah, they're going after different angles, and they're trying to, I guess, bring the face of crypto to their user base at the same time.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of experience and credibility and track record of building companies and that sort of guerrilla marketing that, well, not so much guerrilla marketing, but you look at the team there, they've done very well in the past in a number of aspects.
100%. I think the marketers are incredible. And they're really big on evangelism, and I learned a lot of that from the Burning Man rollout around the world.
Yeah.
I think Bears has been involved with the Obama administration as well to some extent.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of the tech side of the Obama campaign.
Yeah, one to watch out for, guys. There's good money one, but we're bringing you more information about that in episodes coming forward as well. And obviously Toby will give us some insight as to where that project's going and where it's at. Just want to go back and talk about ICOs, because Brock makes some interesting comments about that.
Yeah, obviously, there's probably like an EOS 21 standard coming or something.
Yeah, for sure. With I guess raising and tokenizing, there's been a lot of airdrops on EOS as well, and that sort of new way of raising awareness or doing an ICO. How do you sort of see ICOs changing in the future? Because right now there's a lot of flux as to how new projects are coming about.
Yeah, so Dan Larimer coined the term of a decentralized autonomous corporation. I prefer the term decentralized autonomous community, and so I like to use that same acronym in an ICO. It's an initial community offering. I mean, that's what you're ultimately doing here, is you're building community. And how do you build a successful community? You build a successful community from a leadership perspective by serving the community first, and always doing what's in the best interest of your community, taking care of yourself second. As long as you're always acting as a steward, serving your community first, you're doing the right things from a leadership perspective. And then obviously you need to have a lot of people engaged. And airdrops are an effective means by which to connect with a lot of people that your story may resonate with. So I'm a big fan of the airdrop model. I mean, ultimately you're trying to get the tokens in the hands of as many people that want to support the project long term, not about flippers. You're trying to get people that buy into what it is that you're doing and want to be part of whatever change you're trying to make in the world.
So he talks a lot about this a lot, and community, like he's massive on this community. Yeah. And I think it's great. Yeah. Like he has comes from that really good place. Yeah, yeah. I think which is really good. Decentralized, autonomous community as opposed to corporation, and things that benefit the community as a whole. And I do think you're right. A lot of these things, and we talked about that before, things are moving towards that commons good or commons goal being decentralized. I guess for me, a lot of that says that, as we were talking about before, is some of these things that are being built as private corporations potentially will come out as being, open source and free to some extent.
And they're probably the ones you need to be careful of. You don't want to be investing in someone who's going to build something that's going to be disrupted by a community-owned project that's not after profit if it can undercut you.
100%. And I think, which brings us, there's this interesting model right now. I think, you look at BitMax. Now, BitMax is all about distributing profits back, any trading fees back to, I think it's 80% of the trading fees go back to token holders, and then any trade you make, the fee gets paid back to you in BitMax tokens. And that's a fascinating model, right?
Yeah, and this is one of the hottest ICOs that are going around, and I actually don't know anyone that's been able to secure any of that, because it is a fascinating model that 80% of the fees go back to the community of traders. So essentially you can do so much with that. And again, it's a little bit like the game theory that you see in other projects. Like what actually happens when you have a community-owned exchange like that. It's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out.
100%. And almost to me, it's like they've put that dial, if this is like community-focused project and this is like private enterprise, like I guess Binance is private enterprise, community aspect, almost the purest of pure would be a free exchange. And they kind of like put the needle 80% of the way there.
Yeah.
You might even say. And it just strikes me that is there going to be one where anyone can own the token, anyone can, there's no ICO, or there might be, and it literally becomes a open source exchange that everyone can use, that is a DAC, a decentralized autonomous community or decentralized autonomous corporation. You can, like with Tezos, you can buy the coin in order to help with the governance, and things like that, because you believe in the space.
Yeah.
You know, I just speculate, will there be an exchange where there's zero fees and it's all owned by as a common good? Is there supposed to be an exchange in cryptocurrency that is supposed to be a common good? You know, is it supposed to be a DAC or a DAO or things like that?
I don't know that we'll ever see a zero fee exchange, because for the common good of the exchange to be fast and safe, it needs money for maintenance. So if it's purely free, I don't think it can ever be effective. However, I think it'll find that equilibrium price point where, the fees traders want to pay meet the ongoing cost it takes to run one of these effectively, which I guess what you're saying is they don't necessarily have to make a profit for anyone, but potentially the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To give back to the exchange, give back to the community. I actually think, and I'm going to put it out there, I don't think today this is possible, because there's a thing I think that will allow it to happen, and that is, number one, today blockchain, I guess, is difficult to build. There aren't that many blockchain developers who understand this technology, but we're learning it and we're getting better and better at it every day. And I think when there are lots and lots of blockchain developers, they're going to need to prove their skills. And in order to prove their skills, I think one way is normally they build open source software, they join these open source groups, and they get reputation. And that reputation allows other developers to say, yeah, you're a really good developer because I can see what you've built. I can see what code you've written in GitHub. I can see what things you pushed out. I can see what forums you participate in. I can see what comments you've made on change requests and pull requests and things like that. And I see what code you've pushed and things like that. I think at that point in time, we're almost, developers are getting reputation back in exchange for the code that they put out there.
Yeah.
Like that's how WordPress formed, like how open commerce and those kind of things, and all sorts of open source software has come about. I think in that moment you might see potentially what we're talking about as a free exchange, just purely because developers want to, show their reputation, because that's what they get back in return. But that's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Right now we're not there, but I do think it is possible, and I just find that whole concept fascinating as to how long will it take before these markets go from private to what we saw on the internet where everything went open source. You've got images and stock images being open source and stock photography. You've got code. You've got all sorts of different technologies, and even songs, music being like that, where people can go and use. But it really comes down to, I guess, once it commoditizes and these skills, people need to show them off, and in different ways, it's just more competition, right? And I remember this as well. If you remember back in time, content management systems used to be very, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive indeed. Good ones as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you saw WordPress come along, and WordPress has really run, again, still like an open source, and incredible developers behind WordPress. They are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And they built a great business off the back of that with their hosting and their premium products and things like that, which has been insane. But I do think it's very interesting that, that trend long term with some of these businesses, like even say Binance and its dominance right now.
Yeah.
Could that be undermined in the future?
Oh, for sure. Like, there's never been a crypto exchange that's stayed on top for very long. Like, you look at, when I started, it was Poloniex, and then it was Bittrex, and now it's Binance, and they're doing a lot of things to roll out and looking to adopt the fiat banking side. But yeah, I think you've got this F-coin coming out of China. You've got BitMax that are going on aggressive models to essentially take down their business model, and I guess let the community have more of a vote around it. And it's all about the sort of incentives. Like, if you can incentivize me either through lower fees or potentially I can speculate on the token, and that's what, something like BitMax is a really interesting thing. And you probably, again, I don't think anyone ever understands the full consequence of these incentives, because the BitMax thing, I think, is going to encourage people to hoard coins. If I think you're going to trade there, I'll buy coins just to get a share of what you're doing. And it sort of gets that situation where everyone front runs themselves, and you probably wind up with a couple of whales owning most of it. But if it's effective and it's cheap and the community has a say in it, it could be successful. So.
Fascinating times here. Guys, I think what we might do, we might bring this show to a close, but wanted to thank Tobes for coming on, having a chat with us, laying it straight chat today. A couple of real spicy topics today. I think we're gonna have some feedback from that, as you do. But that's okay, and we want that. We want to grow this space, and we want to build, and obviously change people's lives through cryptocurrency on this show. So do keep talking about it. Do spread the word, guys. Subscribe, join on YouTube, jump onto Telegram and have a chat with us. With on Twitter as well at CryptoFinder. We've got some great stuff coming up, guys. And this week we're going to be seeing some more really interesting content coming at you. So do stay tuned, guys. And thanks so much for watching the Daily Exchange.
Yes.